How we doing, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to Monster Territory, brought to you by the Foul Territory Network. Well, the Red Sox lose Game 1 tonight to the Atlanta Braves, losing their fourth straight game. Final score of 4-2. What else is there to say? There were some exciting things to talk about tonight. The new City Connects, unfortunately, I don't got one right now. I did order one, so we are going to be getting one soon. I got a David Ortiz one. But honestly, we can sit here and talk about jerseys. They look great. We'll talk about that. But really, the real meat and potatoes right now is this Red Sox team is just not coming together. Like I said, they've lost their fourth straight game. Something is just not clicking with this group. Something is keeping this team from fully coming together. They're not making the right adjustments when they need to. They're making big mistakes in key moments in high leverage situations. They're not slowing the game down when they need to, getting too aggressive when they shouldn't be. Tonight we saw it with the base running. We had a few blunders that we have to unfortunately dig into tonight. There's been times where they're swinging out of their shoes. They're not working the counts enough. Not coming through in the clutch, one of the worst clutch teams in baseball this year. Obviously, you can see it with the amount of one-run losses they've had this year. Again, I'll keep saying it, I feel like this team is very close, but something is just keeping this team from fully becoming that tight-knit group. That's, something is preventing them from really taking off. I don't know. I'm not sure. I feel like I have a few answers, but the adjustments aren't getting made, and it's getting a little frustrating, unfortunately. But we'll dive into that for the postgame tonight. Like I said, we did have the City Connects, very hot talking point tonight. I think they look great. I'll talk about them in just a little bit. And, hey, I love me a good pitching matchup. Garrett Crochet versus Chris Sale, the old ace coming back to town, going up against the new ace. Lots of storylines in that one. To me, I still love a good pitching matchup. I feel like the big-time pitching matchups have been lost over the years, right? You go back to Pedro Martinez, Roger Clemens, go back to that 2003 ALCS. You need a big-time matchup like that. I miss those pitching matchups, man, and this one felt special tonight. And obviously, Chris Sale walking away as the winner, but we'll dive into that. The offense, like I said, base running blunders tonight, making mistakes. That, I think, really shot the Red Sox in the foot tonight. It's kind of one of those things where the Red Sox this year, they put themselves in so many good opportunities to come through, but they shoot themselves in the foot so many times, and you just saw a new way where they shot themselves in the foot. We'll talk about Game 2 towards the end of the show, and we might actually have an answer at first base. Can you believe it? Like John Heyman likes to say, I can't even believe it. We might actually have an answer, and it's not Rafi Devers. It's not Rafi Devers. That's still my first choice on the way I would go, but what do I know? I'm just a doofus that sits at my desk. I don't have the answers. I don't call the shots, but they might have an answer. We'll talk about that. Before we go any further, we do have a word from our sponsor.
This is a straightforward show, so I'm going to be very straightforward with everyone about PXG. Fastest way to improve your performance on the golf course is to get yourself a PXG golf fitting. Go in there and let the experts help you.
I've been using PXG for a few years now, Scotty. They are perfect. I love the way they feel. They fit them perfectly to my swing. They weighted them. They put grips in them. They put shafts in them. They use their heads, and they fit my swing beautifully. They have definitely improved my game. They just recently hooked me up with their new Allen putter, which is off the chain. I was draining putts the other day, left and right. So I definitely say go get your fitting at PXG. Nobody goes golf the way PXG does.
Yes, and for a limited time, you could save up to 20% on your entire order. Head over to pxg.com/foul. That's pxg.com/FOUL to save up to 20% on your entire order. pxg.com/foul. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
All righty, let's get to it, shall we? And I guess we can start off with, something positive to talk about. Let's talk about the City Connects here. I'm a big fan of the City Connects. And, go back to when they came out with the first City Connects. Obviously, a lot of sentimental value with those, obviously paying tribute to the Boston Marathon, the tragedies, in 2013. So those meant something to the hearts of Boston fans all over. With these jerseys, though, going back to when they first came out with the yellow City Connects, I actually wonder if this was something on the table. But I think the first City Connects were appropriate because they delivered something that meant so much to the city. And I think those jerseys, people say, oh, I don't know, I'm not a big fan of the yellow, but to me, it was all about the meaning with those jerseys. But here we are a few years later, and I think they really did a great job with these. I think they're very simple, but very effective at the same time. Obviously, the green, it looks great at Fenway Park, the green monster, one of the biggest symbols, obviously the biggest symbols in all of Boston. I think they just nailed it out of the park with that color, with the white on the collar, the sleeves, the white font. I think everything just blends very nicely together. It's a nice complement of colors. And then you got a little bit of yellow. They don't overdo it with the yellow. I'm glad they still have the yellow in here. But obviously, that's when, you have the live scoring going on in the Green Monster. Now, I also think of Pesky's pole a little bit in there too. But obviously, it's more so towards the monster here. You got the B on the patch, right? That's paying homage to the lettering on the monster, and obviously Red Sox across the chest here. And then a nice little touch they have is they actually have the green and red lights towards the bottom of the jerseys. Just a little detail in there. Again, I will say, I hate to say this, I don't think they're the best City Connects out there, but I think they're in that top tier. I think they just did a great job with these overall. I think it's a very solid color. I think coming into it, I'm always a hard grader when it comes to, I'm a former teacher. I like to really get my socks knocked off, no pun intended, but so I was at first around like a 7.8, 8.1, kind of in that range. But when I saw them tonight in action, it went up a little bit because I think they just look great. And I think it also, when you see someone like Christian Campbell wearing the long yellow sleeves underneath, that really just adds more contrast to it. I like how Alex Bregman had some red going on there as well, with the elbow and shin guards. I think there's just so many ways you can maximize the look of it. And when I saw it in action tonight, I was like, you know what? I'm at least at an 8.5. I think even an 8.6. I'm doing the Dave Portnoy pizza scoring over here. But that's kind of where I'm at. I'm right around like a mid 8, I would say. Even a little higher, 8.6, maybe even 8.7. So I think that's kind of where I'm at. I think they're very solid. I think they did a great job with them. These are going to sell like hotcakes. I wouldn't be surprised if they're already sold out. But unfortunately, we got to get to the bad news here, and we got to talk about this loss. But you know what? We had a great pitching matchup tonight, and this is something I will always appreciate, is a good pitching matchup. Garrett Crochet, Chris Sale, like I said in the intro, the old ace versus the new ace. It's great to see Chris Sale doing what he's doing with the Atlanta Braves. I'm glad he's got his career back on track. Sound FX, I see you in the chat. Thank you for joining me tonight on Playback. We watched the game together. And, I was talking about this during the game tonight where Chris Sale, he's really making me think of Randy Johnson late in his career. Remember, Randy Johnson went to the Diamondbacks, I believe at 35 years old in 1999, and the guy rattled off like 18 straight Cy Youngs, or at least it felt like it. He was dominant late in his career. Remember, he went to the Yankees in 2005 at 41 years old. I think he had a record of like 17-8 that year. He didn't look quite like he did with the Diamondbacks like in 04 when he had the perfect game, but Chris Sale is making me think of that Randy Johnson. Just great stuff. Good velo. The slider was just nasty with Chris Sale tonight. So many swings and misses on the slider with him. Overall, Chris Sale, 7 innings, 5 hits, 1 earned, 8 strikeouts, the 1 home run allowed to Rob Refsnyder. But you know what? Garrett Crochet, I think he got a little revved up for it. Crochet got off to a great start tonight. He looked fantastic in the first inning, striking out the side. And in the second inning, I'm thinking, what the heck happened to Crochet in the first inning, giving up back-to-back homers to Matt Olson and Sean Murphy, leaving fastballs up in the zone. You can't do that with those guys. You can't do it. So that was the difference, really, tonight. We'll get to the bullpen in a little bit. But, I mean, really, if you were looking for the key difference, I think that really was it. They couldn't really get anything going against Chris Sale here. But back to Garrett Crochet, give him a lot of credit tonight, too. Sure, the 2 home runs, but he did what he could. 7 innings, 7 hits, 2 earned, also 8 Ks. But he got a lot of whiffs tonight. Fastballs, cutters, working in some sinkers as well. Crochet looked very good tonight, minus the 2 home runs. And I see you in the chat, Austin, underrated start from Crochet. Unfortunately, it's going to get overshadowed by Chris Sale's performance, by the bad bullpen tonight, and the 4th straight loss. So it's unfortunate. So, but when it came to the offense, lots of blunders. Lots of blunders here tonight. I mean, they had their chances, right? Going into the 9th, they were 0 for 7 with runners in scoring position. In the 3rd inning, Jarren Duran had the 1-out triple. Listen, with Jarren Duran, I've been seeing a lot of people talking about Jarren Duran as of late. When Jarren Duran, yes, he has not looked quite like himself from last year, but when Jarren Duran has done something, it's pretty impactful for the most part. Extra base hits, doing stuff on the bases. I think he had 11 stolen bases coming into tonight. He had a 320 on the BABIP coming into tonight. So when he is getting on base and when he is doing something with the bat, it is impactful for the most part. It's just the inconsistencies that we're seeing with Duran and just the Red Sox in general. But with Jarren Duran, what I'm noticing so far from him this year, I think there is a little bit of a difference when it comes to his swing decisions. He's not as disciplined as he was last year. He was still very aggressive last year, but he's walking a little bit less this year. He's striking out a little bit more. So I think with Duran, he's just got to get that little bit cleaned up, and I think he's going to be okay. But you saw it with the triple there. With 1 out in the 3rd inning, Raffy got the walk. Bregman struck out. But then after this, what the heck happened with Raffy Devers? Was he trying to steal? Was there a hit and run on with Refsnyder up? I don't know what was going on right there. It kind of looked like a hit and run to me. That's the impression that I got. And I think just obviously someone missed something and Raffy got caught in between and ended up getting thrown out. So you're thinking there, what are we doing here? What are we doing? Raffy is the last guy that you want even trying to be aggressive on the base paths. That just wasn't the right move. I don't know what that was. I'm sure there was something in the post game from Cora. I'm not sure if he talked about it or not, but that was the first blunder. 6th inning, Duran, base hit. Duran had himself a pretty good night tonight, but then he got picked off at first base. This is where Chris Sale, I think an underrated part of Chris Sale is he's pretty good with the runners on. Caught him leaning just a little bit. Sale out-dueled Duran there, right? Duran tried to get a little jumpy, tried to throw Sale off. Didn't work. You're not going to do that against Chris Sale, and Chris Sale got him caught leaning quite a bit. And then the 7th inning, Refsnyder had the home run. You're thinking, all right, it's 2-1. We're starting to get a little something, maybe a little mojo here, right? And then Sogard had the base hit off the Monster. This is a guy that's gotten a few base hits over the last few games here, going back to the Detroit series. Base hit off the Monster. Like, okay, all right, got something cooking. And I don't know what happened. It took a high bounce when it hit off the Monster, took a high bounce, and Sogard, he got hesitant there. He just lacked that little bit of confidence. He hesitated going around first. He decided to take off for second. He got thrown out by a mile. You can't be doing these kind of things. When you're going up against one of the best pitchers in baseball, you cannot shoot yourselves in the foot. You can't do it. So many. You can do that against maybe, I don't know, Dean Kramer against the Orioles. Maybe you could do that. No offense to Dean Kramer. I'm sure you're a wonderful man. But you know what I mean. You can't be making these mistakes against a top-tier pitcher like Chris Sale, especially one that we know of very well, that you know can dominate. They just dominated you last year. Can't be doing that. I understand the aggressiveness. I can appreciate aggressiveness, but you have, if you're going to be aggressive, you got to do it right, and you got to do it at the right times. You know, I'm not necessarily opposed to when they were trying to be aggressive, but you got to execute. Something is just not fully clicking with this team. I'm not sure what it is. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm thinking maybe the jerseys could be give them a bit of mojo tonight. Nope, it was not the cure. It was not the cure. Unfortunately, the bullpen did not help things out. I'm thinking, all right, bottom of the ninth. Okay, you know what? We'll get a shot. But then the bullpen really just, if there was any mojo left, the bullpen completely threw it away. Hendricks came in for the ninth. Ozuna with the walk, struck out Olson, got the ground out to Murphy, but then he walked Albies. He ended up getting taken out for Brennan Bernardino. A walk to Harris, a walk to Fairchild. That made it 3-1. A walk to Allen. 4-1, 4 straight walks. Bullpen, man. The bullpen, they just can't seem to find their rhythm. Nick Birdie ended up coming in. He got called up today, had very good numbers down in the minor leagues. Remember, he was with the Yankees last year, but the Red Sox picked him up, and he was pitching very well in the minors. A 0.54 ERA at AAA, 13 strikeouts per 9. Big on the fastball. He's got some good velo, got a slider as well. He came in and got it cleaned up, but 9th inning. They ended up getting the run there. Christian Campbell getting the RBI, but in the end, just not enough. And that's another thing, too. Reza Iglesias, he has not looked good this year, and they couldn't get anything cooking against him. You had a shot there. One swing at the bat could have tied the game with Willie Abreu up, but he flied out to right to end the game. So, I can appreciate the effort, but you're going to have to start executing. Winning teams execute, right? Winning teams, I mean, the way when mistakes are happening, those winning teams will do enough and execute enough to make up for those mistakes. The Red Sox, they're not executing enough, right? And I'm not sure where it's going to start. So, I don't know. We'll see. But we got a game 2 tomorrow. We have a little something else to talk about here. And, hey, the train keeps on rolling, ladies and gentlemen. And tomorrow, we got Lucas Giolito back on the mound going up against Grant Holmes. Now, Grant Holmes, he's been okay this year for the most part. Lucas Giolito, he looked a lot better his last time out against the Kansas City Royals. 6 2/3, had the one unearned run. Remember, he had the throwing error over to third base, but he looked very good against the Royals, much better than how he looked previously against the Rangers. So I'm expecting Giolito here to keep things going, right? Look at the Braves. Sure, Garrett Crochet going up against the Braves, but hey, not saying Giolito is going to turn in a Garrett Crochet performance, but if Giolito can figure out a way to keep these guys off balance, then that's going to be obviously very good for the Red Sox. What else is there to say? He's working in more breaking balls his last outing, so I'm expecting Giolito to keep going with a bit more of a pitch selection in this one. Remember, go back to that Rangers series. He was really just going fastball, changeup. Right, so he's bringing back that curveball last time. So I'm expecting Giolito to keep mixing up the pitches a little bit, keep the timing off on these hitters, just like Crochet was doing tonight for the most part, minus a couple of home runs. So Giolito looking for a good performance tomorrow. But then Grant Holmes, so far on the year, ERA at a 4.14, but the FIP is at a 5.18. The reason for the difference there is he has been a little prone to the home runs this year. 1.77 home runs per 9. So if we go over to the game log here, and his last start, he actually did look pretty good against the Nationals his last time out. 6 1/3, 4 hits, 1 earned. He struck out 4. So he is coming off a good performance. Both these guys are coming off good performances. So it's going to be a matter of who's going to execute the most, right? With Grant Holmes, he's leaning mostly with the fastball. He's working in a good amount of sliders as well. He's got a cutter. Okay. Got a changeup as well. So I think we could see a pretty interesting matchup tomorrow. I don't know if we're going to see a Chris Sale, Garrett Crochet matchup like we did tonight, but we'll see. But I think both these guys coming off good performances, I think this is going to be an interesting matchup to pay attention to. So we will see. But everyone, before I do get to the last topic, we do have one more word from another sponsor, and I just want to let you guys listen to that one real quick.
Sometimes we get the asks for lightweight hoodies, and I'm like, they exist. They're awesome at Rhoback.
Without a doubt. Comfort, lightweight, durability. I wear these all the time. The color schemes are absolutely phenomenal.
Go check it out. You can use the code FOUL on Rhoback.com for 20% off your first purchase. That's FOUL on RHOBACK.com. 20% off all shorts, hoodies, polos, and more. Go check out Rhoback.
All right, let's get to it here. Last topic of the night, and we have a little something for first base. It's not Rafi Devers, ladies and gentlemen. It is Christian Campbell. Could Christian Campbell be the answer at first base? Now, I've been on record many times saying that I think Rafi is the best option because that opens up the designated hitter spot. I totally understand where people are coming from because I see people bring up a lot where, well, okay, he wasn't good at third base, so why would you play him at first base? I could understand that. From a positional adjustment point of view, from a value point of view, first base is generally going to be easier than third base. I'm not saying first base is an easy position. Not saying that. More so saying that it is going to be an easier job overall for the most part than it is at third base, right? Yes, you're going to have to learn different things, but overall, it's, for the most part, going to be an easier spot. So I think Rafi going there would make a lot of sense. It would open up DH. However, but then you look at DH with him, right? He's been hitting great as of late. The last few weeks now, he's been one of the best hitters in Major League Baseball, so I can see the argument as well. Do you want to take Rafi out of that spot? Right? I see the arguments for it and against it, right? And we can get back to the whole thing about him wanting to stay at DH because he already got moved off a third, whatever. We've already talked about that. We've already talked about it ad nauseum. Seems like he isn't really for going to first base. We can say what we will about that. Is Rafi a team player? Is he making a good decision for himself? Different conversation. If he doesn't want to go there, you got to figure out the next best option. Now, I've also been on record saying I wonder if Trevor Story could be an option there. A veteran guy that is really trying to do what he can to make up for the last couple of years with all the injuries that he's had. A guy that's had a good glove at shortstop. Would he be willing to go to first base? I've seen other people talk about it. But then there was also another option, and that was Christian Campbell. Now, Christian Campbell at second base hasn't been amazing, but the reason I've wanted to keep Christian Campbell at second base is because, well, he hasn't been amazing there, right? He's had his adjustments that he's been trying to make. He hasn't been great there overall, but to get better at something, you have to keep playing it, right? And with Christian Campbell, that is a position that scouts think that is going to be a good long-term home for him, or a corner outfield spot. So for me, I feel like with his athleticism, I'd rather him play at a higher value position. However, I could also see why it could make sense for him to play at first base too. In the end, it wouldn't hurt to add a little bit more versatility to the resume. Not going to hurt at all. And he's also got the size for it. He's 6'3", so he's going to be a big target. He's very open to learning things. He said before the game today that he's willing to play wherever it can help the team. All right. I don't know who asked him. Someone asked him what was his favorite position to play. Whatever. But for him, he answered it the right way, saying wherever the team wants me. If he's willing to play first base, then I think there's some advantages there. Like I said, he has the height for it. He does have the mobility for it as well. We know he can move around, right? It's more so just the execution of the plays at second base that he's, going to have to clean up over time. But he is athletic enough to move around there. He's a big body, right? And he's a quick learner, right? That's something about Christian Campbell. If you go back to, coming up through the minor leagues, this guy has adjusted to every challenge that has been thrown at him. First base, I'm sure he'd be all up for the challenge, right? And adding a little bit of versatility, a little bit more, will not hurt him at all. But this also opens up the discussion of Marcelo Meyer. Marcelo Meyer playing second base at AAA tonight. something to pay attention to. He hasn't played second base in over a week. So I find that to be a little curious. I find that interesting. So Christian Campbell, if he moves to first base, that opens up second base. Marcelo Meyer, he's been having a good stick down in the minor leagues. That's a good way to get another good bat into the lineup. I feel like the Red Sox need another bat in this lineup to really get themselves going, right? You know, you were trying to find something when you had Casas there. You know, I'm obviously Casas. I hope the best for the guy. Oh my goodness, my timer just went off. I jumped. But Casas, in the end, you were trying to figure something out, and he wasn't able to. The Red Sox, I feel like, have been lacking a bat all year, and this seems like the way they're going with it. Meyer, he's looked great. That's going to give them more extension in the lineup, but I think also a bit of personality on this team. Marcelo Meyer, he's a cool cat, man. Coming from California, the guy just likes to play baseball, right? He's a relaxed guy. He's a laid-back guy, but that he can play some baseball, man. He's a great hitter. He's going to be a smooth defender out there at second base. So you are going to be shoring up the defense there. So that is another thing to consider. Meyer will play a much better second base than Christian Campbell. I want Campbell to keep getting better at second, but I think with Meyer, it would make sense for him to take over at second base for now if Campbell does indeed move over to first. But we'll have to keep our eyes on this, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to wrap it up right there. Thank you so much for joining me for the post-game show tonight. Unfortunately, another negative one, but let's see how game 2 goes tomorrow. Everybody, we'll be back here tomorrow. Go enjoy the rest of your night. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll talk to you next time.